And you had the star of the show, your mate Gunther.
Gunther Wanker. There's lots of oddities about America's Cup. It's quite difficult to beat the winner, actually.
Yeah, if they've got their wits about them, it's harder.
Yeah, I don't think in Formula One you would be able to ever win a single championship if the winner would make the rules.
The job that you really have to do is the one in adversity.
Yeah, for sure. That's when you have to step up. I mean, ultimately, if you don't, then you're not going to be in the job much longer, I think. So,
lifting the trophy, that moment is just so much more fulfilling than just posting a profit in a P&L.
This is supposed to be a half-hour chat between the three of us, but I need to sort of rush the first bit. Otherwise, I feel it's going to take a very long time because I want to ask you about your experience on the boat today. So you became a cyclor for one day and were able to experience this America's Cup boat, Toto, in all its anger out on the ocean waves alongside Ben, who was helming, and George, who was helming as well for a period. What was it like? It
was very impressive, but I felt it's going to be. How this is all structured here and built up. Even getting the health and safety instruction is, I think you're safer on your boat than kite surfing on some random beach somewhere. So that was very impressive, the standard.
It's good to hear.
The processes are right.
The processes are right. So you have everything
in
place to win.
Okay.
And then going on the boat. But you can feel, at least I've been around many sports and I've seen team setups and the operations, and that looks really top notch. And then going on the boat was just pleasure. I was one of the cyclists, but like semi-cyclists, I could take it easy if I wanted to. So I looked around, I looked at the foils working and the impressive mast, and that was good.
There's a drone camera shot of you that's literally looks like you're absolutely living your best life and having the best fun. I mean, what did it feel like?
I did actually. It's so weird. We travel around the world in Formula One and we do lots of fun events and stuff and lots of sport. But this is what I haven't done before. I've been on hobby karts and lasers and kite surfing and flight boards and all of that, but that's nothing against going 40 knots in 8 knots wind. How does that even go? So, and then having the involvement, obviously, in the development part of the boat with you guys, was something.
Did you feel a little bit proud?
Yeah.
Your team helping us along this journey and creating that craft?
Yeah, obviously, but I do, but also being part of the crew in the boat, now I can put faces to it, and the cyclists. Sometimes you get a lot of media attention. Obviously, the driver gets, but it's a team effort, and I like how they've been pushing each other. Come on, give it all. Then I see the baseline of we're pedaling along at 250 watts, and now we go 500 in the cornering, which I didn't know that the cornering was so important. Yeah, very, very nice afternoon.
What about the performance, Ben?
Performance was good. I think maybe there's a little bit of a misunderstanding in terms of the cyclor output requirement. But
what does that mean?
Wasn't most efficient.
I don't know. That's what you said to me. I wasn't sure.
Yes.
When I was supposed to put the power down, but when you did put the power down, I think it was pretty impressive.
Well, you need clear direction.
Yeah.
Come on.
I need clear direction. At home also, I get clear directions. I know what to do and not to do. And here, I thought I'm not feeding in actually.
The same.
But then I did those fun peak watts, and then I said, "Oh, that was really nice. You fed in a lot, but only like for 10 seconds."
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's impressive the power these athletes put down. How does that? Do you think that's quite nice in a way that it's very similar to Formula One? The technology is obviously absolutely critical, but there is, other than the drivers, like you say, there's more of a human element in terms of the athletic performance, which is driving the overall performance. That's quite neat in a way.
Because I like team sports, but obviously in motor racing, you're alone in the car and everybody works in the background. But what I like in sailing, what I've experienced today, is that you're driving it, but you're one part of the equation. Then there's the other guys are doing the navigation and some of the
trimming some of the sails,
and then the 4 cyclists.
Yeah.
So you're all in this together. Everybody plays its role, and you're all in the boat together, which was a new experience, and that is different to Formula One.
Toto, what will be another new experience for you is the idea that this cup, for all its bizarre nature, runs from 1 year to the next 3, and you only have this one moment, sort of every 3, maybe every 4 years, to really show what you're all about and what all the effort and work's been moving towards. What's your sort of assessment of that? With Formula One, the seasons roll into one another very quick, and obviously you're always looking ahead constantly, but it's a different approach. So what's your assessment of how the cup teams have to behave in the lead up to competition and ahead of what we are now walking into, which is the business end of it?
I think definitely there's lots of oddities about America's Cup. It's clearly the peak of sailing, the high tech, the best sailors, most professional setups. I mean, this is Formula One on water. But then the winner gets to make the rules. That's an interesting aspect. It's quite difficult to beat the winner, actually.
Yeah, if they've got their wits about them, it's harder.
Yeah, I don't think in Formula One you would be able to ever win a single championship if the winner would make the rules. But it is what it is. You have to just be better. And then this notion of every 4 years, a little bit like the Olympics and the Football World Championship, is a difficult one because you never know where you stand. You're setting these targets and is it good enough or not? And then you could be starting sailing and you're just far off, or you're right in the game, and that can certainly lead to some frustration, I guess.
Yeah. And
what does it feel like for you, Ben? Because you have got that, it's a totally different approach to how Toto would operate with the Formula One team, isn't it? It is this moment in time that happens and this build up, this huge crescendo to that moment.
Yeah, it's very much in stages, getting the rules and setting the strategy, working through that strategy, trying to execute on that. And then this period we're in now where everyone's trying to jostle for position, figure out where they stand in the pecking order. No one really knows until we start getting some more official racing or practice racing. And then still in that period, it might be that the teams that are performing in the early rounds, not necessarily as you get to the later rounds, because there's still a lot of performance left to gain. And the conditions will undoubtedly change as well. We know that here in Barcelona, it's really changeable weather-wise. So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of, as they say, golf left in the hole. So got to keep pushing hard.
Last time out in New Zealand, there was obviously a relationship that had begun there between Mercedes and Ineos Britannia. That has evolved. How has that evolved? How has that relationship, at the risk of sounding like we're on a therapy couch, not the relationship between you two necessarily, but how has the collaboration between the Mercedes team and the sailing team really evolved over that period of time, would you say?
I think Ben and I, we don't need any
counseling,
therapy, partner counseling, because there's a lot of romance in our relationship.
I think
bromance.
So. A bit of a bromance.
Bromance, a bit of a bromance. Okay. But Susie and you are always nearby, so that's good to know. The thing is that, at the beginning, I guess the impulse came from Jim, and that it made a lot of sense, but putting sailors together with motor racing people isn't intuitively the thing you would do. And I think it needed some adjustment time before it really clicked. And all of us are trying to do the best possible work and to be successful with the project. For us, it was interesting because some of our people weren't that excited anymore about Formula One. They wanted to do something else, and then we were able to really good people to put them into the sailing project. Is a good way also in learning about different things.
Yeah, I guess it's an exciting place to put your resource, isn't it? To try out different things.
Yeah, so we are pretty limited in what we are allowed to do in Formula One outside of, let's say, the regulations. But the sheer fact that you're putting people on hydrodynamics when previously they would only look at downforce, suddenly that needs to lift actually is interesting. And then in Formula One, we do apportionment. So we can have people that work in both, and that's beneficial for our cost cap. So we did some of that. But in all truthfulness, at the end, you want to give it the maximum power. And within America's Cup, we ended up with a very, very big and strong core team. So I think this is just how it needs to be done.
And Ben, from your side, where would you say the biggest sort of impact has come from the Formula One team?
Well, firstly, we've learned a huge amount, across the board from the partnership. So thanks again. And I think maybe in a smaller way, there's been some reciprocal learning.
Definitely.
Just, the scale of the organizations is really what sticks out. America's Cup team typically is around about 1/10 of the scale of a Formula One team on particularly on the technical program. And so we're a bigger technical organization now through this partnership. And then it's been about really utilizing that resource and putting it to where it matters, because it'd be easy to go off and start looking under all of the rocks and getting distracted. And that's really been what we've tried to focus on. And some key areas, really fluids and simulation, a little bit manufacturing as well, and reliability, which is so key in your game. And it's the same for us. If we have the fastest boat in the world, but if we can't get it around the racetrack when it matters, then that's no good to us. So yeah, a huge amount of learning. It's been a really, really, for me, it's been a fascinating process.
And what about the commerciality of it as well? Because I think Formula One is a hop, skip and a jump ahead, isn't it, of where the cup would look to Formula One as a leader in the commercial approach. I mean, even Toto with, the recent life cycle of Formula One with the Drive to Survive piece and a few other ways that it's really been broadening its audience base. I mean, what do you think the key lessons you could impart for Ben and the team are on the commercial factor? Because that's how it's got to survive, isn't it, moving forward in this modern era where, they're clambering for space sports.
I think Formula One has been around for 70 years, and that must not be forgotten. But in the same way, the Cup was around for longer. But putting on a great show, it's all about the entertainment factor. And I think Formula One has been putting on a great show. I think when you look back at 2020 and 2021, especially the big controversies that they existed, and at the same time we were the only sport that was actually was able to putting something together, whilst everybody else couldn't in COVID. People were watching at home. Netflix at the same time got quite some traction and interest.
And you had the star of the show, your mate Gunther.
Gunther Winter. I've written a foreword in his book because he's hilarious. He's probably, and he's
that not on a serious note, some of those teams' survival relies on the entertainment factor too, right? They have to be visible for sponsors to be attracted to keep those teams going, which keeps Formula One going.
But it comes down to being authentic. Gunther is authentic. Yeah. He doesn't talk any differently in real life. And he clearly was the main standout person for that team. But I guess that the younger drivers that came in, they have lots of social media activity. Liberty allowed that because previously, we were very limited in what kind of content we could broadcast from the paddock. And all of that came together and made the sport grow faster and bigger. And most interestingly, very different new audiences. So young females is something that the sport was particularly weak in. And now the strongest growing audience is women between 15 and 35. So that's interesting.
Damn, I'm out of that bracket. Never mind.
Just.
Join us for the Performance People podcast every week for the highs, lows, lessons and stories from people like this lot. Michael Johnson.
Some days what I would see is a person who is a shell of what I used to be.
Eddie Hearn.
We don't operate in a business that's dangerous, but we just operate in one where you've got to sleep with one eye open.
Mo Farah.
It couldn't get any harder than what I've gone through, and at that point I just went for it.
Paula Radcliffe.
You can only control yourself.
Susie Wolff.
And Toto did once liken me to a donkey.
Every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, performance people, listeners. My name is Freddie Carr, and I host a podcast called the Inside Tack, which is a podcast that follows the British America's Cup team, Ineos Britannia, as we get ready for the 37th America's Cup down here in Barcelona. We also follow the youth and the first ever Women's America's Cup. We would love you to like and subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on all your social media channels as we get ready for our sporting challenge of a lifetime.